This is Art Television.
Coming up, State of Business, sponsored by
UHD quality video streaming, internet like a boss, SLT Mobitel Fiber,
IWS Aviation.
A very good evening and a warm welcome to State of Business on Art Television. I'm Ashine Ali and let's have a look at the headlines first. China shows Sri Lanka an active role in encouraging quick IMF decision. Despite poor performance last month, the tourism sector earned over $500 million in the first quarter of the year. News in detail. Chinese Ambassador Qi Zhenghong told Finance Minister Ali Sabri yesterday that China will play an active role in encouraging the IMF to consider Sri Lanka's difficulties and reach an agreement quickly. Referring to the restructuring of bilateral debt, Chinese Ambassador had also stated that China will support discussions with the relevant financial institutions and departments to resolve maturing debt issues. A Sri Lankan delegation led by Minister of Finance Ali Sabri concluded the 2022 spring meetings of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank Group held in Washington, D.C. from the 18th to the 22nd of April 2022. Discussions focused on the Sri Lankan economy and policies and measures to be implemented in the immediate short and medium term. Key areas discussed included addressing the immediate need of restoring supply chains of essential items, including fuel, LP gas and pharmaceuticals, securing bridge financing in the interim period until IMF financing with an economic program is finalized, and implement short to medium-term policies to ensure macroeconomic stability. Views were exchanged on supporting the people in the immediate term and future in a more coherent manner. The meetings focused on securing an extended fund facility to overcome the situation with a medium-term view. A rapid financing instrument was also requested for consideration of the IMF to obtain immediate financing, which will be a bridge to the EWF. A staff-level agreement on an IMF program will unlock bridge financing facilities from the IFIs and bilateral partners. World Bank meetings focused on obtaining immediate foreign financing and obtaining policy advice. The World Bank Group committed to provide emergency support for essential medicines and health-related supplies, meals for school children and cash transfers for vulnerable households. The delegation met the Asian Development Bank President, the South Asia Regional Director of International Finance Corporation, the Administrator of the UNDP, the Secretary General of the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, and the Secretary General of the Paris Club. The Indian delegation reassured India's enhanced commitment to support Sri Lanka through several channels, including direct bridging finance and deferment of accumulated Asian Clearing Union liabilities, and through multilateral agencies. Working with multilateral and bilateral partners, the government developing focused and concrete policies and measures, including a strong macro-fiscal policy framework, which is expected to enable the country to overcome the present difficult conditions and address issues in the economy. Central bank data shows that tourism sector earnings have crossed $500 million during the first quarter of this year. Earnings from the month of March amounted to $191.5 million as against $12 million a year ago. Earnings data for the tourism sector has faced debate over its accuracy, and it appears the latest cumulative figures have been adjusted to account for an overestimation in January. Originally, January earnings were stated as $268 million and it was $173.6 million in February. With figures for March, the first quarter figure should have been $633 million as opposed to the $513 million stated in the latest report. This adjustment reflects that January's actual earnings were $148 million. 106,500 tourists arrived in March, bringing the cumulative total to 285,334. A year ago, the figures were 4,581 and 9,629 respectively. According to the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority, up to 18th April, the cumulative tourist arrivals amounted to 325,894. In 2021, reported earnings from tourism amounted to $261.4 million, down from $682 million in 2020. Tourism Minister Prasanna Ranattunge yesterday called on the activists to be realistic and support the country to overcome multiple crises. The minister holds that the number of daily visitors was between 4,000 and 5,000, but has now fallen to 1,000 visitors. The minister added that the protests are blocking foreign currency inflows and further disrupting economic stability. The Sri Lankan Broadcasters Guild proposes that all political parties must work together to form a stable government which can implement economic reforms. This was mentioned at a media briefing conducted by the Broadcasters Guild in Colombo this morning.
I think still the party politics are taking precedence over the national interests, and we as a guild think that this is not the time to do that. This is not the time for party politics. It's an emergency, and it's absurd pointing fingers. I think they should get together and solve this problem. So that's another step that we are going to take. That may not be done immediately, so we'll give them some time. We are going to have a series of joint programs which will be simulcast through all our channels, bringing in specialists, bringing in economists and people like that who will prescribe a solution to the current economic problem. Number two is we will bring sufficient pressure on people's representatives to solve the political problem, because destabilized country will not be conducive to solve the economic problem.
Stay tuned for more news right after this commercial break.
News, views, highlights, updates and opinions. This is Wake Up with us.
Roundup.
Welcome back after the break. The organization Voice Against Corruption, dubbed Dushana Virodhi Handa, has organized a public event to export acts of corruption by current politicians. JVP leader and NPP parliamentarian Anura Kumara Dissanayake, addressing the gathering in Colombo, said that the list includes the names of Namal Rajpaksha, Yoshita Rajpaksha, Basil Rajpaksha, opposition leaders Sajith Premadasa and several others.
අපේ රට අද විශාල ආර්ථික අගාධයකට මුහුණ දෙමින් තිබෙනවා. අත්‍යවශ්‍ය භාණ්ඩ ආනයනය කිරීම සඳහා වූ ප්‍රමාණවත් ඩොලර් ප්‍රමාණයක් නැති ප්‍රශ්නයකට අපි මුහුණ දී තිබෙනවා. අපි අරගෙන තිබෙන ණය අපිට ගෙවා ගන්න බැරි තත්යකට මුහුණ දී තිබෙනවා. ඒ නිසා රටක් හැටියට අපේ රටේ ආර්ථිකයේ විශාලතම බිඳ වැටීමකට අද අපි ජාතියක් හැටියට මුහුණ දීලා තිබෙනවා. මේ ආර්ථික බිඳවැටීමේ පතුලේ තිබෙන කරුණු අතර අපි දිගින් දිගටම පෙන්වා දෙනු ලැබුවා මහජනයාගේ ධනය කෝටි ප්‍රකෝටි ගණන් මේ හිටපු පාලකයින් සවුන් වටා ගොඩ නැගුණු වලලු විලසින් හොරකම් කොට ඇති බව. ඒ නිසා අපි මේවා සරලව කිව්වා රටක් දුප්පත් වී තිබෙනවා පාලකයන් පොහොසත් වී තිබෙනවා. රට දුප්පත් උනේ කොහොමද කියලා හොයාගන්න පුළුවන් කියලා අපි කිව්වා පාලකයන් පොහොසත් උනේ කොහොමද කියලා හොයාගත්තා. මේවා මේ වංචා දූෂණ කියන මහා සයුරේ කුඩා ප්‍රමාණයක්. කවුරු හරි අර්ථකථන කරන්න එපා මේ සියල්ල කියලා. මේ සියල්ල නෙවෙයි. හොඳයි. යෝසිත රාජපක්ෂගේ ඉඩම් ලේස්තුව. අපේ හම්බුනාසි. ඉතින් සිරිබෝපුර කැලය ඔප්පු අංක 41.29 ඉඩම් ප්‍රමාණය හෙක්ටයාර 0.5යි රුපියල් මිලියන 1.6යි මිලදී ගත යුතුයි.
Based on Department of Census and Statistics data released recently by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka reports that headline inflation measured by the year-on-year change in the Colombo Consumer Price Index increased to 29.8% in April 2022. The annual average inflation for the month of April 2022 rose to 11.3%. Inflation was driven by monthly increases in both food and non-food categories. Year-on-year food inflation increased to 46.6% in April 2022, while non-food inflation increased to 22% in January 2022. Monthly change of CCPI was recorded at 9.25% in April 2022 due to price increases observed in terms of both food and non-food categories, which were 4.31% and 4.95% respectively. In the food category, increases were observed in prices of milk powder, rice, bread, dal, sugar and dried fish during the month. The non-food category recorded increases due to price increases observed in the transport, education, housing, water, electricity, gas and other fuel and restaurant and hotel subcategories. The CCPI for all items in April 2022 was 180.2, registering an increase of 15.3 index points compared to March 2022 and represents an increase of expenditure by Rs 9,211.66 in the market basket. The year-on-year co-inflation, which reflects underlying inflation in the economy, increased to 22% in April 2022. Annual average co-inflation increased to 8.1% in April 2022. The weekly economic indicators released by the CBSL reflects the impact of price increases in items both food and non-food categories. In the real sector, from 23rd to 29th April 2022, crude oil prices showed a mixed performance. Crude oil prices fell on worries about global energy demand outlook due to COVID-19 outbreaks in China, potential increase in U.S. interest rates, and a strengthening dollar. Crude oil prices increased owing to increased geopolitical tensions as Russia cut gas supplies to Bulgaria and Poland and drawdown in U.S. distillate and gasoline inventories. During the period, Brent and West Texas intermediate prices increased by $3.23 per barrel and $5.51 per barrel respectively. In the monetary sector, the weekly average weighted prime lending rate AWPR for the week ending 29th April 2022 increased by 218 basis points to 16.38% compared to the previous week. Reserve money increased compared to the previous week mainly due to increase in deposit held by the commercial banks with the central bank. Total outstanding market liquidity was a deficit of 722.611 billion rupees by the end of the week compared to a deficit of 709.11 billion rupees by the end of the week prior. By the 29th of April 2022, the all-share price index decreased 6.28% to 7,624.26 points and the S&P SL20 decreased by 4.37% to 2,509.24 points compared to the index values of the week ending on the 8th of April 2022. In the fiscal sector, through 2021, government revenue rose to 1,457.1 billion rupees and the total expenditure and net lending rose to 3,521.7 billion rupees, while the overall budget deficit rose to 2,057.9 billion rupees. During 2021, domestic financing increased to 2,071.8 billion rupees and foreign financing recorded a net repayment of 13.9 billion rupees. Outstanding central government debt increased to 17,589.4 billion rupees and the rupee value of total outstanding foreign debt increased to 6,492.2 billion rupees by end December 2021. Since end 2020, total outstanding domestic debt increased to 11,097.2 billion rupees. In the external sector, during the year up to 29th April 2022, the Sri Lankan rupee depreciated against the US dollar by 41.4%. Given the cross-currency exchange rate movement, the Sri Lankan rupee depreciated against the Japanese yen by 33.4%, the euro by 36.9%, the pound sterling by 36.5%, and the Indian rupee by 39.6% during this period. Gross official reserves were provisionally estimated at $1,917 million as at end of March 2022. And that's all news for today. See you tomorrow with State of Business at the usual time. Until then, take care and good night.